We've challenged you throughout the course of this season to share your passion for the Second Amendment, to give a brand new shooter a chance to find out what it truly means to find love at first shot. You've seen Smith & Wesson Captain Julie Golob help gun enthusiasts do just that with their friends and family members. But now it's your turn. In this episode, we'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to tackle everything from that first conversation to the very first shot. I'm Natalie Foster, and this is Love at First Shot, sponsored by Smith & Wesson. So how do you approach a first-timer and start the conversation? You never know when a passing comment can turn into a conversation and ultimately a positive, life-changing experience. Keep your radar up for moments like these. When you sense that a potential new shooter is open to the idea, continue to put their mind at ease by explaining the basic firearm safety rules. The 3 safety rules outlined by the NRA are these. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. Consider inviting your friend to your home to show them different firearm options. You can even work on grip, position, and stance with dry fire to build confidence and good technique. Before setting a date and time to hit the range, there are some important things to consider. Timing and location. You want to avoid a busy range with lots of noise and lane neighbors shooting large calibers. To find a range near you, log on to findnra.nra.org. Gun selection is one of the most important components of a successful first shot experience. Start on the smallest caliber possible, ideally a .22 for handguns and rifles, and light target loads for shotguns in 20 or 12 gauge. As the saying goes, less is more. 1 or 2 firearms of the same type in different calibers are more than enough for a first-time shooter. You want to make things as simple and consistent as possible. Let's talk about other essential gear. Bring a couple of different options for eye protection to account for lighting conditions, face shape, and comfort. New shooters can be very sensitive to loud noises. You can help reduce the effects of this by doubling up on hearing protection with both earplugs and muffs. Now it's time to talk technique and instruction. For that, we'll need a true expert, so I'll toss it over to the champ herself. It's all yours, Julie.
Bringing a new shooter to the range for the first time can be a rewarding experience for the both of you, and I'm gonna go over a few things to make sure it's a safe and fun time. First and foremost is safety. So you wanna make sure that your shooter understands the basic safety rules, and especially when they're on the range, they understand what downrange is, that they keep the muzzle or the end of their gun pointed towards the targets at all times. They'll also want to make sure that they keep their fingers straight and outside the trigger guard. You'll probably have to remind them a few times throughout your entire session, and when you do so, be calm and clear. In fact, if they have any questions, this is the time when you want to make sure that you answer them calmly and concisely. Let's talk about the fundamentals and start with sight picture. You'll want to explain sight picture for the firearm that you brought with you, and you can do this very easily by drawing it on target or a piece of paper. Stance and grip are very important for that new shooter to control recoil. For stance, you'll want your shooter to stand aggressively with their feet more than shoulder width apart and their strong side foot slightly back. You'll have them bend their knees, lean forward at the waist so that their shoulders are forward of their hips, and extend their arms out on the target. You don't want to have them lock their elbows because that could eventually be a bad thing. You want to keep them nice and bent, but everything is nice and tight so that they are pressing the back of their hands together. This is going to help them control the recoil by absorbing it through all of the bends in their body. Dry fire is one of the best ways to teach your new shooter proper trigger control. And you want to have them extend out onto the target and squeeze the trigger slowly and straight back to their face. I like to tell new shooters to imagine they're dragging their finger through really thick peanut butter. Now, ideally, you want your shooter to use both eyes when they're aiming at the target, but if they have a hard time seeing the sights, it's absolutely okay for them to shut an eye. Now, when both of you are comfortable and confident that your new shooter is ready to go, this is your turn to shoot. You want to take the first shots on the target so your new shooter can have an idea of how loud it's going to be, what to expect in the way of recoil, so that helps them feel a little bit less apprehensive. Now, I like to start with one round in the gun when I'm teaching new shooters. That makes it so that if they decide they don't want to shoot anymore, the gun is completely empty. I also find it very helpful to load and unload the firearm for the new shooter. This way, they don't have to be distracted by a new skill that they have to learn, and they can focus on the important thing, shooting. Next, you want to make sure that they're in the right stance, and you'll hand them the gun with that one round, making sure that their finger is off the trigger until they're on the target and ready to shoot. Talk them through the shot, make them feel comfortable. You'll also want to position yourself in a way that you can control the recoil behind them and also secure the gun in the event that the shot really surprises them. A lot of first-timers start their range experience with a rifle, and I want to go over a few tips and tricks that will help you make this experience a positive one. First of all, the great thing about shooting from a bench is that everything is always supported. So we have some sandbags, our rifle, and the gun is always pointed downrange. One thing that's unique with rifle shooting is you're going to want to establish their dominant hand and dominant eye. If you have a right-handed shooter that's right eye dominant, it's not a problem at all. But if you have someone who is right-handed and left eye dominant, then you have a cross-dominant issue, and you may need to either have them shoot left-handed or right-handed to make sure their line and their hands line up with the target. You'll have them take a seat at the bench, and the position they're gonna get in is gonna be based on their arm length, how their cheek lines up with the stock. You'll have to work with them a little bit in order to see the sights. But the important thing is to make sure that they have the butt of the stock in the pocket of their shoulder, like so. Their support hand can either hold the stock right here, or if they're more comfortable, they can rest it on the sandbag as well. You'll want to explain that the cheek needs to rest on the stock. At this point, you've explained what sight picture and trigger control are. So after they've dry fired the gun a few times and they feel very confident, they get down on the gun and make their first shot. Clay shooting is such a fun way to bring first-timers to the range, but it does come with some challenges. Unlike with rifle and handgun shooting, where you can bring your target closer or make it bigger, that's not really an option when you're shooting trap, skeet, or sporting clays. The other thing is you're not able to start with a small caliber like .22 that you would with a handgun or a rifle. You're going to be shooting some full power loads out of a shotgun, and it's going to have some recoil. The two things you'll want to pay attention to as an instructor are stance and stock placement into the shoulder. Let's start with the stance. I like to create a good, stable platform for when I shoot, and I like to stand with my feet more than shoulder width apart with my strong side foot back. And this is the position you'll want your new shooter to get in. After that, I bend my knees and lean forward at the waist, and it's gonna feel really aggressive, almost like a boxer stance. And it may feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it's really gonna help absorb that recoil. The next thing to pay attention to is stock placement, and this is very important because you don't want your new shooter to go home with a bruise. You'll have them nestle that stock into the pocket of their shoulder. You don't want it on the arm, you don't want it on the chest, you want it right in there. And you want to have them bring their cheek to the stock. This is going to help them feel like they're in control of the gun and they can hit their target. Some shooters handle that first shot with ease, but others need a moment to process it all. Just be encouraging and listen. Don't get too wrapped up in the target, just talk about the experience. Ask them if they want to shoot again and go from there.
Guns seem to generate an emotional response from all of us. For experienced shooters, it can be about confidence, empowerment, or even nostalgia. For new shooters, those emotions can usually be very different, so it's important to be sensitive to their needs and talk through the process. And of course, don't forget to share your experiences using the hashtag #LoveAtFirstShot. Keeping all of these tips in mind, you'll no doubt be successful at sharing your love of shooting and begin a ripple effect to shift how our nation views guns and gun owners. Next time on Love at First Shot, we reconnect with some first-timers we've met on this season's journey and learn what they've been up to since taking their very first shots.